You know how some people can be one way online but a completely different person offline? Well, Rachel is not that at all. What you see on her Instagram is exactly what you get in real life. Rachel runs her Instagram account at Rach Martino, where she has a massive following of over 500,000 people. She's not just a super charismatic and friendly influencer, she's also a badass female entrepreneur who has built an incredible business that goes beyond just her personal brand. I sat down with Rachel to talk about the beginning of a creator journey and how she diversified her income and grew it into an online empire. She talks about how she grew her affiliate income during the pandemic, built a six-figure photo studio business, and where she wants to take her business from here. Let's get into it. Dream your future, create it today.
Hi, I'm Rachel Martino. I'm a content creator based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm the founder of Dreamloft Studios.
So I just want to start off with how you started your influencer journey. Did you first start on YouTube or was it Instagram? How did it all begin?
So I actually started on YouTube, even though I don't really do YouTube anymore. But when I was in college, I was actually interning for Avon, which is a beauty brand. And I sold Avon in my dorm room. And they had a call out for interns in New York City. And that was the first time I ever came to New York when I was 18 after my first year of college. And I was the social media intern. And part of my job was actually sending out press mailers to girls who were creating videos on YouTube, which was so new. This was 2010. So YouTube had only been even around for 3 years, but you saw these girls popping up, creating content online, which I thought was so cool because it was really democratizing content. Because before it was like the only place that you could get beauty and fashion information was from magazines, and that was controlled by Hearst Tower. And so this was like seeing girls in their rooms just putting on makeup and giving advice, kind of like a big sister. And here we are sending them products. I'm like, I want to get free products. That sounds cool. So I just decided to create my YouTube channel in 2010. And that was really how it all started. And then that turned into obviously Instagram. And when I moved to New York after college, I worked for Estee Lauder on their marketing team. And because I was working for a large beauty brand, I shifted some of my content to be more fashion related. So it wouldn't be a conflict of interest with my work, which is kind of funny. So now I'm kind of more known for my fashion side, but that was just because of the circumstances at the time. But so in 2015, I resigned from my job, my corporate job in the beauty world, and I've been a full-time content creator since 2015.
Wow.
A long time.
I think you might be the person that I interviewed who's been a full-time the longest.
Yeah, OG.
Yeah. I did speak to Wendy yesterday.
Oh, Wendy's lookbook. Oh,
yes. She
a
is
queen.
Iconic.
Iconic.
But she'd been doing for 12 years.
Yeah.
And you guys are like the real OG because you've been at it for a long time.
I looked up so much to Wendy's lookbook when I got started. So I literally, even the way I'm sitting right now for you guys who are watching, this is like, I call the Wendy pose.
You learned
I learned from her.
Yes.
It's how you can sit pretty.
Yes. So
shout out to
when you
Wendy.
first started YouTube, you did beauty influencing. They were tutorials and makeup stuff.
Yeah.
How did that go for you in the beginning? Did it take off or did it take a while to gain some traction?
Well, I think I was lucky because YouTube was still pretty new. There was not that much content. There was still a lot of content on YouTube. I mean, with any platform that comes up, it doesn't take long for it to fill up, but there was still space. And honestly, people forget that early days of YouTube was kind of like TikTok now, where you could go viral and be on like the front page of YouTube, and you could just get really lucky. So I had a few videos that really took off, but not like huge. I mean, even I think that, the highest point of my YouTube channel was like 40,000 followers. But then another thing that I did, my journey has taken a lot of turns, but I also created a YouTube channel in French because I was a French major in college. So I was like, why not create some of these beauty videos in French just to practice? And that channel actually had 200,000 subscribers in the end because I think French girls were really interested in, they already were watching like the big American YouTubers, but this was in their language, and they like thought my accent was cute, which is so funny to think about. But yeah, so I have I also speak French, and I have videos on my French YouTube channel.
I see. Wow. So then how did you decide to transition that from YouTube to Instagram? Was that like 2015, 16 or?
I feel like I got a Instagram in 2012. I think that's kind of the year we all first, and I remember I was on a first date with this guy, and we were chatting, and he took a photo, and then he like put this cool filter on it, and I was like, oh, what's that? He's like, oh, it's Instagram. I'm like, oh, what's an Instagram? And he said it's an app for hipsters to make cool photos. Because it used to use, remember the filters on Instagram?
Look how it has evolved. Wow.
And I was like, oh, sounds cool. And then I immediately went home and downloaded it. So that was like when I first started Instagram, but I didn't think of it as something to connect with my YouTube channel. But then I realized, so I started posting more content on Instagram to try and grow my followers. And again, I just sort of started focusing more on fashion content because of my job in beauty.
Yeah.
It was just a little bit easier, and I could start even then earning a little bit of money from like my first collab for $200 with like a t-shirt brand that doesn't even exist anymore. Yeah. So
yeah, my first collab was also $200.
Nice.
And it was for like a hair oil product, and I was like, wow, this is so much money.
I know.
But it was a very crappy campaign. I regret it. I'm kind of embarrassed. Yeah, but now I do a better job. But yeah, so when you started to grow your Instagram, were you trying to learn how to do it somewhere, or did you kind of just have to figure it out on your own, or you had other peers to discuss with?
So I feel like at the beginning it was just, Instagram was so different. You just put photos on there. It was not such a big deal. You just put mirror selfies or pictures of what you were eating. It took a while for it to become a little bit more curated. And I remember around that time I met some great creators in the New York City area through some Fashion Week events who are some of my closest friends to this day. And a close friend of mine, Noelle, so her and I kind of grew into fashion bloggers together, and we would trade tips. We would meet up at coffee shops, and we would take each other's photos. And I'm even meeting her later today to take photos. So, we still work together all the time. And it was just so refreshing, I think, to have other people to chat about our career, because I was used to coming from a job where you had coworkers.
Yeah.
And to, I think one of the things people don't talk about at the beginning of becoming an influencer is very isolating.
Yes.
You're by yourself all the time.
Yes.
And it's just a different experience. But
it's a lonely career.
It can be a lonely career.
Yeah.
But I was so lucky to meet some girls that also did the same thing, and we definitely bounced ideas off each other and still do to this day.
I see. I think one of the reasons why I find your content super interesting is that you go all out when it comes to seasons or holidays and events and so on. So I thought that was very special. I wonder if that also helped you gain some traction to your page as well. And I just like to call it like seasonal content.
Yeah.
And I tell people like this is the best time to put your stuff out there and grow.
Definitely.
So every year, how do you prepare for the various seasons? What's the most important season?
So I would say it's hard. I feel like it's between Halloween and Christmas.
Yeah.
But I think it almost just because I have blonde hair, I feel like people really love the Christmas content. I always say I'm like grown-up Eloise, and I love really getting into it, and the bows and the Christmas outfits and the shoes, everything red. So I love planning for Christmas content. So for me, it's more just like choosing which locations I'm going to shoot at, and kind of doing the same ones every year in terms of the New York City spots, which are constantly changing, but generally speaking, they're the same. And obviously planning out a wardrobe. So just right as the stuff comes out, making sure I'm having all of the bows and all of the Christmas sweaters, which there was not a lot of good ones this year.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a lot of ones from previous years, but I love planning out holiday content. And it's my favorite time of the year.
Hey, I hope you've been enjoying this conversation so far. If you have always wanted to become a creator and get paid to share about your passions on social media, then I have a free training for you. In this training, I cover the 4 steps to landing paid brand deals, even if you don't have a ton of followers. We talk about content strategy, growth strategies, and where you can find the higher paying brand deals, because we all want that. You can sign up at successfulinfluencer.com/training, and I'll link it in the description as well. Now, back to the conversation. I have found that when I post seasonal content, it gets the most traction, and also making sure to do it at least a month beforehand. So like fall happens on September 1st, even though it's still like really, really hot.
Yeah.
And Christmas happens right after Thanksgiving.
Right after, if not
or
earlier.
just right after Halloween, really, on
Yeah.
November 1st. And it's kind of the way that you can get ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
right? But after, what I found was like after 1 or 2 years of doing it, it felt a bit repetitive to me, like
Yeah.
especially in New York City, like the decor tends to be the same, and then you go to similar places to take beautiful photos, and they're only really like iconic ones. How do you kind of reinvent the wheel each year, or do you just kind of go with the flow and you don't really try to have to reinvent it?
I think it's hard because exactly to your point, like, you know, you get to a point where you're like, wow, it can be kind of similar, but for me, I love the styling of it. I love creating the outfits and finding those spots and taking photos, and whether it's by myself or with friends or with my significant other. And ultimately it's like people love to see it no matter what. And so
That's
it's like,
true.
also I'm at a place with Instagram where I think sometimes you have to stop overthinking it, because you can get yourself into such a rut, or you can get
Yeah.
so frustrated, and ultimately like we can't control how many people are going to see the photo. So I like to just make sure that I'm happy with what I'm creating, and it brings me joy, because if not, what's the point? And I hope it brings other people joy. And
Yeah.
you know, sometimes it's something that you didn't think was going to be as popular as it was, and it is, and you just kind of have to say like, oh, that was great. And if it doesn't do well, like, who cares? Like, I still want to put it in a frame because I
Yeah.
think it's a beautiful photo. So
Yes. So, is it Sarah Dici? Is that her last name? She says, do one for you and one for them.
Yeah.
So either for the audience or
Yeah.
for the algorithm.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty good rule to have, so that you're always satisfying your creative needs, but then you're also feeding the algorithm, so
Right.
to speak.
Definitely.
You have seen Instagram evolve through the years, like going from the filter app to being like full on platform for creators, and now like focused on reels.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time where it was difficult for you to adjust to all the changes happening, or you just kind of ride with the flow and make it work?
Honestly, I think now has been like the hardest, because I do feel like I adopted Reels, and I definitely grew my TikTok channel, which I think I'm really proud that I was able to grow that to where it is today. But I just feel this weird sense, and I don't know if you feel like Reels were so popular and you're like, okay, just post Reels. And now it's like, wait, but what about the photo? It's just, some days I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm doing, which is
Yeah.
crazy to say after
Yeah.
so many years doing this job. But again, I just try and focus on what makes me happy and what I feel the core audience interacting with. Because sometimes, even if it doesn't do that well, but maybe it gets me a lot of DMs or a lot of comments, it's like, all right, well, the people who really care do care about this.
And they're still
so
there.
don't just focus on the number of, likes. There's also saves. There's also DMs. Like, what are people interacting with the most?
Yes.
And caring about.
Yes. I've been going through some of the same issues, I would say, like maybe a year ago, and now I'm very okay with it. I think you have to go through a period where
Yeah.
you ride the highs, but then you start doubting yourself, and then you see it reflected all in the numbers, and you're like, oh no, I have no more career. My career is ending. Everything is going to go away. But then a year later,
Yeah.
it's still there. And sometimes you still see good, nice bumps, and you have ups and downs.
Definitely.
And then you just realize, oh, you're not always supposed to just keep going up and up and up.
Right.
Like this is
It just doesn't happen that way.
yeah, not even anybody else's career. It's always a bit of a bumpy ride, although overall, you're still just generally going up. So as long as you're generally trending in the right direction, then it's fine. Because Instagram is having an identity crisis.
Yes.
And for me, because so much of my identity is tied to Instagram, like actually my entire thing, I got a bit too lost in it at a point. And so that's why I doubted my entire self-worth value as a person even, which is kind of crazy to say. It's just a social media platform.
Yeah, it does. And I think that that's one thing that I always try and remind myself of, because it's easy to fall into those traps. But at the end of the day, close your phone, set it down, and enjoy life, because we can't control what Instagram decides, and they are going to change their mind a million times. But I think ultimately, if you are satisfied with the content that you're creating, if you are happy in your own life, if you're earning what gets you by, there's no, like, you're just going to torture yourself.
Yeah.
Caring so much about every single like. It's just not worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Once you come to terms with it, you'll be okay. And then just keep moving forward and things will fall into place.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So along the way, in the beginning, you were just kind of monetizing with like brand deals. And then eventually, did you decide that, oh, I wanted to diversify my income streams? Or what was going through your mind as you sort of developed on this career?
So I think the big thing for me was the pandemic. So in 2018, 2019, things were going great. I was earning a ton from brand deals. I was feeling happy with, my content. I was traveling. I was just living a high of kind of the influencer life, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then when 2020 hit, it was a big challenge because A, we don't have all these great locations to take photos.
Yes.
And B, brands weren't really spending as much money.
Yes.
So the first thing I did was I actually put a little bit more energy into affiliate linking, because ultimately I said, hey, this is, instead of me, it's like the analogy is like a girl sitting around waiting for a guy to call her. Like, I'm not that kind of girl.
Yeah.
And we're sitting around waiting for brands to call us. Like,
I love it.
that's not my vibe.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just like I used to sell Avon, I'm like, I got to get out there and hustle. So I was like doing a lot of try-ons, and my tipsy try-ons, which I do, that are kind of funny. Yeah, I need to do some more of those. Those are fun. But try-ons, and then really pushing product, which wasn't something I focused on a lot before because I had plenty of work with brand deals. But I'm glad I did, because ultimately it's something that you're more in control of, which I really like, because, and I think you have to kind of train your audience. At the beginning, it was definitely like, wait, what are all these stories? What are all these and I get that. But at the end of the day, like, that was something I wanted to focus my energy on. And it did help during that period where I wasn't getting as many brand deals. And then on the flip side, again, I didn't have a place to create content. So my partner and I, we were living temporarily in LA during the pandemic. We moved back to New York and found this incredible live work loft. And I immediately came into my head that I wanted to make it a photo studio. And I knew it was going to be a big investment, which was really scary at the time because I wasn't getting as much brand work.
Yeah.
But I really had to believe in the vision. And so I set it up to be a photo studio and our living space. And because it was so large, it's a 2,000 square foot loft, we got some amazing brands coming through. We had Comedy Central, we had a Netflix pilot shoot there, we had Amazon, Google. I mean, it was wild. I mean, we would have days where there would be 35 people shooting very serious videos there. Wow. Like, you had to be quiet or go somewhere else. But that spilled out a little too much into our life because it was our home. So I said, all right, this is doing really well. Why don't I consider getting a second space? And again, it was definitely a leap of faith. I mean, we had seen success with our home space, but it was a little scary to sign a second lease. I mean, because when you have a lease, you have to pay that money every single month, even if nobody comes to shoot their photos here. Yeah. But again, for me, it was also such a refreshing creative outlet because, being a fashion and makeup blogger forever, it's like I knew I had other creative ideas and energy to put out there. So being able to do more interior stuff was really satisfying. It's a great extra income stream. And I think that that's something that's important, is to remember that, you don't know where your next dollar is going to come from always when you're a freelancer, because at the end of the day, we're still freelancers.
Yes.
So it's good to think about what else is out there. What else could you do?
Yes. But what I found the most fascinating about you starting the studio is ultimately you're going from a freelancer position into like a businesswoman, because now you have to think about the capital invested and how long it will take for you to get return on that, the cash flow, and then all of those things, margins and conversions and all of that stuff, which as influencers, like, we didn't have to think about that. It was just, here's a brand deal, I take photos, I do my best job, and I network, and then that's the end. So this was definitely a learning curve for you too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. When you first started, when you built the studio, I guess the loft, that was intended to become a studio?
Yeah, so when I saw the space, it was definitely more than I wanted to pay for rent, or a little over budget. So when I found the loft, I kind of had in my head immediately that it would make an amazing photo studio. It kind of looked like a photo studio. It kind of had that. What I loved about it was it had that feeling of a New York City apartment, which is so funny because so few New York City apartments look like a loft, but we have that in our head from Friends, from all these different TV shows that depicted this sort of New York City loft. And I knew that I could make it into that.
It was a dance studio, was it?
It was, yeah. So it has been many different. The previous tenant was a photographer. He ran a very successful photography business there. He was a photographer for Vogue, all these things. And then before that, it was actually a dance studio. So it had so much open space, and I could just see that it was a great potential. But yeah, I mean, it was scary because the rent was higher than I wanted to pay. But knowing it had live work opportunity was what was like, okay, then this is the right space. And I'm really glad I made that choice. Definitely. Even though ultimately we did have to leave the loft, which was sad.
Are you able to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
What was the reason?
So basically, we had a lease, obviously, but it's owned by one person. It's technically a condo building, and so they decided to take the apartment back. And it was just for personal reasons. It had nothing to do with us. It was, it's not my place to share her personal business, but that was, her reason for taking the apartment back. And, it's her apartment ultimately. That's what renting is, which is scary, what makes it scary. But, it was really hard. I took it really hard, but especially having this space, which we had already finished by the time that we had to leave the loft, I felt like, okay, we have this space still running, and it's okay to let it go and move on to the next chapter. And now we have this beautiful home that we're working on renovating. Absolutely love it. It feels more like a home too. The loft was very apartment-y, but this is literally like a house. So it's really nice.
So is that home also going to be a photo studio coming up?
So I'm not exactly sure what my plans are for the space, because right now we're just in the midst of renovating it. We love it. And part of me is like, do I want to rent it? Because there is such a important thing of separation of home and work. So for now, I think we're going to just keep it as our primary home, but we do want to open more commercial spaces. And that's what's nice, is when you have a commercial lease, it's a little bit different. You have a lot more flexibility, generally speaking, in terms of renovations. I mean, you think about a store or a restaurant, they're always going to do renovations to make it part of their brand. So same thing with the commercial lease like this one. You have a lot more flexibility. So I think in the new year, I'm not going to give anything away, but stay tuned.
I'm so excited to see your future projects with that. I remember one thing that I heard somewhere was that whatever is your expense in your business, you should turn it into a business, offer it as a service. And that's essentially what you did. I think content creators are always lacking beautiful spaces. And there was a complete lack of that here in New York City. There's a ton of them in LA, and they're very affordable. They're very unique. But I will say there's nothing like this, very eclectic, girly style. And so you essentially turned that expense and that need into a business and offered it to other people, which I think is the smartest part. But also because you have marketing skills, you know how to grow social media, you know how to do content marketing, whether that's on TikTok or Instagram. So that's a huge plus too. So it's really thinking beyond our own personal brand and being like a freelancer, taking gigs, but how can we expand this into multiple different product service offerings and build it into an entire empire. And everyone has their own different routes. Your route is the studio is a big focus. Some other, I did my digital courses. Other people have physical products and so on. So I think that's the really cool evolution of where content creators are going.
Definitely.
I wanted to ask about how you managed to grow your Dream Loft Studio page. It's very unique. So I followed you along the entire journey. As she's doing all these renovations. I loved watching them. They're super entertaining. So you started the page, and then you were like, this is gonna go private. You gotta follow here if you want to be the first to see the renovations, see the wallpaper and all of that. And I was like, damn it, why do you do this to me? Now I have to follow this page. And so I followed it because, at a point, we get very stingy without follows.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I want to know what Rachel is up to. So I followed it. It was so smart. Can you tell us about how you came up with that?
That was a fun little tactic. So basically, through the process of renovating this space, I posted a lot of the renovations on TikTok, and that was a huge way that I grew my TikTok following. But it was hard to decide which things to put on at Rach Martino on my Instagram, and sometimes I was like, maybe this is a little too much. So I was like, I should definitely start a Dreamloft Studios specific Instagram. And at first I just thought of it as like a place. I really thought I was just going to be reposting people's photos that they took here and some of my own photos here. But I realized it could be a great opportunity for me to have a secondary monetized Instagram. Because Instagram at the end of the day is my number one profit driver. So what I first did was, it was sitting around like 10,000 followers, which is already great. And I was really excited, but I realized you do have to incentivize people to follow. So the first thing I did was I knew people were going to want to see the reveals. So I would put the account to private and then post on my own personal page saying, if you want to see the reveal, you have to follow. And it was actually, it was hard because I would have to like manually accept. Because I didn't know if there was no other way. My assistant and I would manually be thousands of people, but it didn't take that long. So that's how we grew to about 35,000. And that was like sitting there was a good place. And then I just thought, okay, well, I made all these TikToks about the renovations of Dreamloft Studios. Maybe I should just try, Reels is growing. All I see is people talk about Reels growth and how newer accounts are prioritized. And I'm like, oh, it is a new account, whereas Rach Martino has been around since 2012. So basically I just said, okay, I'll just literally repurpose once a day a reel from my TikTok to the Dreamloft Studios reel. And I don't know what was in the water, but it grew 100,000 followers in a week and a half.
Wow.
So now it's sitting at 200,000, which like I still can't even believe. But I'm really excited because now I feel like I have a secondary monetized platform, especially for like in the home space. So like to get gifted product for future studios.
It's a cost.
And because furniture and appliances are the most expensive things compared to like, our outfits. So I'm very glad about that.
Yeah. So you did mention like the SMEG was a collaboration. They sent you the beautiful appliances, and then this couch
Apartment
was
2B.
a collab. And I assume the East Olivia is like a collab as well.
Yeah. So it's funny because Kelsey is a friend of mine. It's not a traditional collab of exposure. It was actually, she used the space several times to shoot her own content for East Olivia. So that was another a great idea, and I'm planning on working with her in the future because I think that her floral installs are just incredibly beautiful. And they add something so special. I mean, at the end of the day, I've researched a lot of peer spaces, and that's one thing I have never seen exactly the same thing. Big floral install. So pretty cool.
I like that. I feel like it's very interesting because usually when we do collaborations, we feel the pressure to provide a lot of exposure to people or reach. But then here you can provide a different type of value, whoever it is. Maybe you it's a new opportunity to network or meet other people and provide value to others beyond like your reach. So, and the second page is super smart too, because then you can get paid. You can increase your rates by just saying I can cross post on both channels. So that is super smart. Hey, what you're watching right now is a video version of our podcast. Did you know that we also have an audio-only podcast? If you're on the go or you don't have YouTube Premium but still want to listen to the podcast, then head to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts to tune in. We also do audio-exclusive weekly minisodes where I answer one question submitted by a listener like you in under 10 minutes. And if you love our audio podcast, we would love for you to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. All right, back to the conversation. Speaking of brand deals, I'm assuming at this point, you're just like, they just come to you naturally and you just have to select, pick and choose. And do you have a manager for that?
Yeah, so I actually signed with DBA, now United Talent, in 2015. So I've had the same agency representing me for a very long time. And I have a great relationship with them. But I mean, I'm still a hustler though. I got to tell you, I still work on pitch decks that I like to send out to brands that if I'm really interested in working with a brand. Like for example, Anthropologie. I'm obsessed with
Yes,
Anthropology,
yes.
and especially their home pieces. So I worked on a 12-page intensive deck showing the before and afters of this space and sort of outlining what I wanted to do with my new home. And they finally took the bait. So like,
Wow.
I don't know if I should even be saying this, but I doubt they're listening. But if you are, hi guys. Thanks for wanting to work with me. But so I'm going to be working with them on my new space, and I'm so excited. And so like, you, again, like I said, with the analogy of, waiting around for a guy to call. You do not have to wait around.
Yes.
And what's the worst they're going to say? Nothing. And
Yeah.
so then you're just like, okay, and not to be pushy or anything, but you have a lot of value. So if there's something that you want, go out there, send a DM to start the conversation. I still cold email. Like I think people are surprised sometimes when I say that, since I've kind of been an influencer for so long, but no, I'm about that.
Yeah.
Do it for yourself, girl.
I'm definitely surprised because like I'm so lazy now. Like I don't do any cold email. I'm just like, just come to me if you don't want it. I don't want it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I guess it's helpful that like there's different income streams for all of us. So then there is also less pressure to have to always be reaching out and always be on top of your game with brand deals, because essentially you are just how do I say this, like a marketing channel. Like to give them that reach and that brand awareness and so on. So that's a nice like relief from that, right?
Definitely.
So do you think these studios will become a larger part of your revenue streams in the future, like more and more? And is that the ultimate goal?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting, like, to see where it's taking my career and what directions I'm going, because now it's so weird. Because like the other day, I was at the dog park and this girl came up to me out of nowhere, and we're used to from time to time people coming to say hi, or I follow your Instagram, and she was like, "You're the girl from TikTok with the cool loft," and I was like, yeah. And I don't know, like it was so surprising to me, because that's not how I've been a fashion blogger for so long, that I was like, this girl probably doesn't even have any idea that I even have been a fashion blogger since 2010, or however long. And so I am seeing myself more in the interior space and wondering where that's going to go. But I do think, like, ultimately I do want to, I don't know if you feel the same way, but being the face of it is hard. I don't always want to only feel like I have to rely on brand deals or continually just being a marketing channel. So it is exciting to see that the studios are growing, we're getting more bookings, and that could be part of my future, and maybe designing spaces could be part of my future as well.
Yeah. So. Maybe you could even start a furniture line. Rachel Martino X Anthropology furniture line.
Let's talk it.
That would be epic. Manifesting it into your future.
That is my dream.
Yeah, that would be
manifesting
ideal.
It.
I really like that idea of sort of pulling your face away from your brand, because I am facing similar. I think all influencers who are like face heavy face the same problem. And for me, it's really about like needing to start a family, that I need to stop traveling as much. Like I can't fly every month anymore. And then also just feeling the pressure of aging as somebody who has to keep showing up on the camera.
Yeah.
And every day you're looking at yourself, and like people are very forgiving. Nobody has ever said anything.
No, yeah.
Like people are incredibly nice, and then they say really nice things.
You also have such a baby face. I'm shocked to hear you say this.
Yeah, but it's scary.
Yeah.
And I don't like to see myself that way in a way. And I don't know if I like to have that out in the public all the time.
Yeah.
It feels very vulnerable. And it's okay to be vulnerable online. And I think that's how you get like real people who, you share your stuff and they care about you and all of that. It's really nice, and I'm very appreciative. But it's just, it's hard. Pressure.
Yeah, I think it is something that people don't think about as much, that you are so face forward and you have this pressure to feel like you're always on.
Yeah.
You always have to get on stories, and people want as much as you'll give them.
Yeah.
And again, you have to kind of set those boundaries for yourself. But it is hard, because you never want to feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough.
Yes.
I'm not, doing things that could get me to the next level of where I want to be. But so for me, that is kind of where I got to with being an influencer. And so I'm very happy that I'm exploring other other revenue streams, other creative outlets, because it has helped me. Because there was a time that was dark when you're just like, oh my God, I'm sick of my fucking face. Like, pardon my French, but oh my God, like it's a lot. It's gonna be a lot.
Yeah. I definitely feel that so much.
Yeah.
But I also think it's really smart. You mentioned the whole affiliate income thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was always a huge income stream for you. I had no idea that it was like during the pandemic that you stepped into that, which really, really surprised me. Is there anything that you can share? Because I know you share a lot in one go.
Yeah.
And what I find, so for some context, basically in Rachel's story, she'll have the links and lots of different outfit compilations, which is totally your style, but I assume you have some help curating that. And there's a lot of stories in one go. So I'm always scared that people will click away.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen that happen to you? And then sort of, how do you still make that a very effective series of stories for affiliate income?
Right. So for me, it's kind of what I was speaking to before. So again, it was definitely at the beginning hard because I think people were like, what is this? Like, this is not the stories that I'm used to. But at the end of the day, like you know it, you're the driving force. And when you make it a daily thing, I think people who watch my stories, they know every day you're getting the faves and finds.
Yes.
And if you don't like it, tap tap tap. Like, you know, if you want to see me, if you want to see Taxi, if you want to see Leo, if you want to like get the fun stuff, then you know it's like a YouTube ad. You got to watch the other part. If you don't like it, you click skip ad. It's not a big deal. I think it's so easy to like overthink. Okay, well, because people are going to click away, but some people are going to click it, and you need those people to click it, or you're never going to make any money.
Amazing.
So for me, I'm just like, you know, you have to remember that we are giving so much away for free. And so at the end of the day, I just think, so if you gotta watch the ads, you gotta do this. And, you know, I think that, it was worth it. And it's one of those things, hard to know. Maybe I would have more followers if I didn't post that, but then I wouldn't have the, you know, so it's like everything is a balancing act.
Yes, that's right.
But because I've stuck to it and you show your audience what they're going to get and they see it every single day, like sometimes people, you know, I always get people that are like telling me that they got the outfit and that they love it and hoping to give them that inspiration. So it's worked out.
So is the rough breakdown right now like mostly brand deals, I assume, and then maybe the next one is a studio, or it's affiliate income?
No, affiliate link would be they're close. They're close. But you know, the brand deals is definitely still at the top. But then I would say the studio, and it's the first year of the studio.
Yeah.
So you know, hoping that it continues to
book
see
with the
even
link
more
below.
Success. Yeah, you can book with the link. And you know, even in the last 6 months was better than the first 6 months. So I'm hoping just to see that continue to grow as an income. And then so you know, but they're all 6-figure businesses.
Amazing. I love it.
So
yes.
Small 6-figure, well, the other two, but you know, they do.
That's significant.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of it, like with the studio, for example, that's profit, but there are a lot of expenses with the studio.
Of course, yes.
Compared to, you know, I think we don't realize just how much we're lucky with the main, you know, brand deals. You know, it is a low barrier. It is we have low expenses. I mean, we still have expenses.
It's high profit.
High profit margin.
Yeah. So are you comfortable sharing with us just like the highest paying brand deal amount? Not the brand, just the amount.
This year I had one very low 6-figure deal. Wow. So over a year long commitment. Which was my first time ever. That was like a huge win. I was so excited. So, you know, and I love doing long-term partnerships. It's always going to be the most exciting thing because you're like, this is something that I know is coming in, and you can kind of plan your year around that. But like you said, you know, I take all parts of the business very seriously, and so, you know, I look at that profit and loss, and every year I decide where to put the expenses. And
yes, and I see that there are many brands that come back to you too, and that's just a testament to like the quality work that you do, and being very professional with them and delivering things on time, or being very communicative and just being a professional overall. And so that's why you get that repeat business too.
I mean, and again, I think I've just been around for so long, and I've have a good reputation of being, easy to work with. I do care about my brand partners. Something I like to do, which I don't know if I've ever heard an influencer talk about this, but
Yeah.
I like quarterly send like Starbucks gift cards to like brand partners that I've worked with, and it's it's something
Smart.
so small, but it's like but they always mention it, they always appreciate it, and I think it's almost fun. We're so used to getting free stuff,
Right.
but people that work at brands they don't necessarily have
That's
that, and
true.
so like they're really appreciative, and they that's something that they remember. And I just it's like a client gift. So
Yes.
of my appreciation for working with them, and I think they
love that.
They remember it.
That's really great. It's just a nice gesture because
Yeah.
they also work really hard
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
coordinate for everything to happen.
Yeah, and I always take care of my managers as well. Anyone who works or works on my team, because those people they bust their ass all day working with me, for me, and then I'm very big on gifting anyway. So it's like that's one of my like love languages. So.
Yeah. Did you know that your assistant and my assistant were written up in an article in Cosmopolitan?
Yes.
I was like,
I saw that.
She actually she didn't send it to me, but I think I saw it somewhere. I got mentioned, and I was like, oh, what is this? And I read it, and I was like, okay, nothing incriminating.
Yeah.
She says I'm like nice to work with, so I'm like I'll take it. And then I was like, hey, Rachel Martino.
I remember Caitlin was like, is this okay if I do? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Definitely.
good. It was a good article. I thought it was really interesting.
I think people are interested to see, like, they see what we're doing, but kind of more the behind the scenes and what they do.
Yeah.
Caitlin is incredible. She runs the show.
She makes your life a lot easier.
She does. I always say, I joke around, I'm like, she's the director. I'm just the talent. I just show up and she helps me get organized. She's a very organized person. I'm a little bit more chaotic, creative energy person.
Yeah.
Unlike you, I know you're very organized.
I try to be organized, but I feel like it's very hard. My brain is in all different places. It's in 10 different places at once.
Yeah.
And I'm still like the COO. Like I don't have a COO role.
Mm-hmm.
I've hired 2 assistants, copywriter, graphic designer, and then also now a content marketing strategist for the course side of the business. So
wow.
she actually helps me come up with real ideas and carousels, and I don't have to be doing them anymore or coming up with ideas
so
anymore.
smart.
Yeah, but
so are all of these people working for you full time or contract?
So actually, they're all contract because the work is so eclectic. So it's actually very hard for me to come up with a full-time role where one person has the skills to cover all the bases.
Yeah.
So they need to either be a jack of all trades to be hired full-time. So that's kind of tricky in terms of hiring. I would like to.
Yeah.
It's just hard because it would be nice to have that stability.
Yeah.
But it's a little growing team, and it's
That's
nice.
great.
And I hope we can do like more fun company activities in the future and all that kind of stuff, but we'll see. So what is in the 5-year vision of the Rachel Martino brand or the Dream Loft Studio brand?
Yeah. 5-year vision. Again, I think I wouldn't call it plan. I would call 5-year manifesting.
Yeah.
Because again, you never know where the life is going to take you.
Put it out there.
But yeah, because I always say the only thing you can plan for is surprise, because that's just the way life is. But I would say, something that is as important to me is continuing to grow the Dream Loft Studios brand and open more studios. And in addition to that, like I mentioned, I really want to get more involved in the interior space. So designing spaces that are not Dream Loft Studios, designing spaces for others, either may it be brands or people, is something I'm really interested in, and potential. I would love, to do a show one day. If I could be, on HGTV, or even if it's just a digital show, that would be really cool, because I do want to inspire people in their interiors, especially people who are maybe just renting, and people. I think that even for me, I've had a journey. Like if you look at my old apartments, it was clearly like I just thought, I have to do what's popular. So I had gray chairs.
Yes.
Even though I'm the most colorful, it didn't make sense.
Yes,
and everything was from West Elm, which no shit, I love West Elm, but that mid-century modern, everything was mid-century modern, which is in no way my style. And it was taking that time over the pandemic and focusing on just getting what I liked, just going with your gut. Yeah. And again, it has to be my style. My style is very girly and eclectic, but I think listening to that inner voice when it comes to styling yourself and styling your space is what I'm really passionate about.
Yes. I love that. One last question before we wrap up. Do you think social media has shaped your style to be more colorful or more unique in any way? Or is it more just you're drawing from your own childhood or inspiration or experiences in life and then you're just showing it to the world?
I mean, I think social media has shaped us all in so many ways because just the very nature of it. But I have always been very colorful. And like, if you would ask my mom, she would be like, yeah, she wanted her bedroom to be purple growing up. She has always loved pink, colorful designs. You know, I remember the other day I stumbled upon like old Pinterest boards, and it was very color, which is so funny. I still didn't even do it, but I love yellow, pink, purple. Like, it's always been colorful when it comes to who I am as a person, what I wear, and now thankfully how I style my spaces. So I've always been a colorful girl.
I love that. I love it. I love that you're so true to yourself. I'm the opposite. I was like all black, like just leather and black and lace, hence the name of leather and lace. And then only after social media, I was like, color, pink, girly things, bows.
I know. I I've loved seeing your style change and evolve, and I feel like I just love your collection that you had full of tulle and bows, and I mean, I was just like living for the girly vibes.
It was a fun experience.
Absolutely.
But yes, I think it's very interesting just to see how it amplifies your style, like it does for you, or sometimes it shapes your style, like me. But I do it more out of maybe some of it is like business decision.
Sure.
Just I think it's a smart marketing strategy, etc. So that's very interesting to know. So to wrap it up, where can people find you across your channels?
Oh my gosh. So please follow me on Instagram at Rach Martino, and you can follow Dreamloft Studios at Dreamloft Studios, and also on TikTok, Rach Martino. And thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.